meeting. We'll be discussing several things tonight that's on your agenda. And at this time, we will have a prayer led by our chief of police.
Let us bow our heads. Most gracious and everlasting Father, Lord God, we thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you, O God, for community as well. We thank you, Heavenly Father, everyone that is present tonight. And we thank you for those that are en route. We ask that you bless them with traveling mercies. Lord God, we ask you to come and be with us tonight as we attempt to do your business for your people. We ask you, O God, to guide our thoughts, our actions, our words, and our deeds, and have everything that we do to be about the upbuilding of your kingdom and the upbuilding of your people. In your name's sake we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. On the overview to that 2019-2020 budget process.
That's me, Madam Mayor. This budget's a bit different to work on, and I'm not going to give any specific numbers tonight, but we do have a surplus that we're working with for the 2018-19 budget due to all the hurricane funds we've received. So that's helped us out from a cash flow standpoint. Our revenues for this year are down in some areas and up in others. We will discuss that further in detail as we get further into the budget process. We still don't know what we can do as far as a millage increase because we don't have the numbers yet from the census data, which comes out every year from the state of South Carolina. That's usually like the last week in May before we get that information. The local government fund's going up about $7,000 from $142,000 to $149,000, but it's still only funded at about 79% of what we should receive. We should be getting well over $200,000. But I guess everyone at this table knows that. We have building permits are extremely high. As a matter of fact, we're projecting to be even higher next year, and we'll go into that when Alan comes for his presentation in a few minutes. Especially want to single out for praise, even though she's not here tonight, Karen Carroll. She's worked understaffed most of the year. And we've been using temp employees down there to try to limit our costs for state retirement. We have several vacant positions down there, which we attempt to try to fill to open. But most of the folks that we have to come in and apply don't have a driver's license. And we've decided since we have 4 that don't have a driver's license, we're not going to hire any more folks that don't have a driver's license. It's just... We need folks to be able to operate equipment. We have some shortages in other departments from like a manpower standpoint, and Chief Washington may cover that in a few minutes in his department. Overall, I want to compliment Ms. Priest and her staff for working with Webster Rogers to help get them out of here so we can start working on the next year's audit. The Brittingham Group out of West Columbia has been engaged to be our next audit firm, and we have begun working with them to get the numbers and their figures, everything together for them to work on the audit for year 2017-2018. That's all I have at this time. And
quick question.
Yes.
The hurricane money that's come in, is there any chance that's going into the fund rather than going into the general fund? The reserve, didn't most of that come out of the reserve fund?
It did. There's only been very few years, and Ms. Pridgeon can attest to this, where that reserve fund has been static. The reserve fund is our operating fund. And we take from it, and most of the year there's not much in it. And maybe in June there might be some money in it. The rest of the time there isn't. That's one of the things we talked about with the cash flow issue that we have in December and January, and wanting the money from Duke Energy quarterly. So I still have not been able to address properly the reserve in a way that I feel good about. But there's not an easy answer to that. I mean, we're supposed to set aside money based on the plan that was submitted in 2002. It's $100,000 for general fund and $50,000 for water sewer. We haven't done that this year, and mostly it's because we've used that money to balance the budget, and that's kind of what it comes down to. So that I hope that answers your question.
I knew that needed an answer, but
Yes.
there's just not enough money to go around.
Correct.
So the reserve it's truly supposed to be a reserve.
That's correct.
For emergencies.
Well, it was designed too, so that we wouldn't have to go borrow money
Right.
to finish up the budget year. We could borrow it
Gotcha.
from ourselves, and then when the money came in, we could put it right back in there. So it's a savings account that was our backup for our rainy day.
I see,
But
and now we
we've
don't
had-
have that
We've
now.
had to use it because of,
Right.
We haven't had
But
that about
if
10
we would've
years,
gotten our
right?
tax returns
Long
done
time.
on time, we'd have had money flowing in.
Well, no, this is more or less about hurricane reimbursements, because we spent so much money 15, 16, 17, that it was a drag on the budget, and it was almost 22 months before we got more than $500,000 last June. That was the drag.
FEMA was dragging their feet.
Yeah.
Pay it back.
So that was the big drag on that. But,
FEMA sounds like a good deal, but you gotta collect from them.
no comment.
Everybody's saying the same thing.
But yeah,
I see they don't discriminate.
well, we could talk about this for another 20 minutes, but one thing I'd like to do this year is for these things to move along in a quickly and orderly fashion so everybody can present and we can get out of here at a decent hour. It may not always happen that way, but I'd like for our folks to present their budget numbers and then questions to be at the end of each budget presentation for each department, if that's okay with y'all. Chief.
I'll do my best.
Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna, if you all don't mind, I'm gonna ask Chief Kavanaugh to present the fire department's budget first, and then I'll present the police department's budget. Okay.
Thank you all for allowing us time to do this. Instead of going down line by line, I'll let you glance over ours. I know we can explain some highlighted
Page
areas.
29.
Page 29. But our biggest thing this year, unless something breaks down, our biggest thing this year is to purchase an additional pickup. Now, we had talked about trying to get two, but right now Howard and Chief and I looked over the numbers. It's just not going to be easily possible. So we're going to put an additional one on in the next, but as soon as the new budget comes on, then we'll work on getting that third one that we agreed on at the council as some money comes in. So we're just trying to get the best we can without putting too much of a burden on what we got already. So we'll try to get one more put in there. We're going to work on that, and then as funds become available, we'll work on the next budget, putting another one in to get us caught up. There's some of our biggest things that you'll see that make note of is like our line item, like 217. That's our auto operating fund. The one thing I want to point out there is that's the fund that you use for putting fuel in vehicles or when vehicles break down. This year we had a rough one. We had some vehicles break down that won't. Our good thing is, as the projection goes on, the more vehicles we replace, for instance, the other pickup we're going to get, and we've got the two brand new engines, that leaves only two other older vehicles that don't get not driven a lot, so the chance of them breaking down may not be as well. But the one thing we did do this year, if you notice, we had a trailer parked out back. We, for the first time in 10 to 12 years, we had an outside company come in and literally go through those things head to toe. And they received a federal inspection to make sure everything was up to par. Now what that does, it also gives us a list of problems that we may have that we can start working on as budgetary concerns, handle the big things first. And it also covers us in the expense that if something does happen, an employee can't come back and say we were driving an unsafe vehicle. All these things have passed federal inspection. It costs a little more out of the budget, but it covers us in case something does happen. That was one thing we did get to accomplish this year, and that happened roughly a month and a half ago. We got them all done and checked off, which is a good thing for us. And that's why sometimes you'll see our operating expense. It depends on how much calls we run, how much fuel, and if a vehicle breaks down, or what it's got to take. The other one I want to point out, and I'll make this kind of brief, you can look down through, is item 226. That's our maintenance and service contract. Yeah, you're going to see there's an estimated expenditure which we're probably not going to hit, but we usually budget about $4,500. What that is we are on a Palmetto 800 system with Motorola. We have a VHS system we have to maintain. Our main function is off that VHS system, but to be in the federal system and the state mutual aid, we have to have that PAL 800 system, which is like the police. They've gone up. We pay like $500 a month for that thing. By the time we pay that bill, and that's something we can't help that one, because I'm sure Chief Washington has the same thing. When Motorola decides to increase it, we're at the mercy of them. So that's why you're going to see a big cost in the maintenance and service contracts, because that's for our radio communication systems, our paging systems, our things like that. Everything else that we worked on, we try to work off of what we try to spend and try to keep it, what we spent, what we project, and try to keep it around close. Do you have any questions as you look down through it?
So where you bought the trucks at, where's that at?
That's gonna be, you mean the pickup trucks?
Yeah,
That's gonna come out of
293.
293.
293, oh, okay.
So we'll continue paying for the one and add the second one on. And just like I said, wasn't physically possible to dig the money out somewhere.
That's purchasing a new truck or that lease?
One more. Well, we're purchasing it for us. The amount of miles we put on for us is gonna be a lot. And we got 4% interest. Where that truck will be ours in roughly 3 more years, the first one. And it's worked out pretty well. We get it, instead of farming it out and buying it turnkey, when we did the figures, we buy the truck, we locally get it radios and striped, and we save that way because instead of ordering the whole truck, if the truck costs 30 and it costs us 15 to 20 to outfit it, you're paying interest on that whole 15 to 20 extra. You're paying interest on 50. So now we do the truck this way, the budget covers the rest. We're only paying interest on 30. So that helps us out this way. And Chief Washington and I, we worked on some police cars. We don't explain the same way. It saves us in the long distance, so we're not interesting that whole thing when we don't need to.
Right, so,
So
I figure I need a car. Can we figure that
Move
out?
on.
and you got to work with the sales guys. We did get Raceway to.
Financing that way.
Yeah, we did get Raceway Chevrolet to come in.
Move on.
And Raceway has agreed to actually work with us, and they've been great to work with before. We've had to fight, but they're actually working with us to
Yeah,
get
but
these vehicles in.
it's good.
What's your
Name of
next?
the group?
Raceway
Well,
Automotive.
that's right, the one that never would give us any,
Yes,
give any business.
it took a lot of hassle. Me and a couple of guys went in and sat at the office, and I know we're being videoed. It's threatened to take our shirts off and dance around outside. And they're like, "No, let's work with it." But that's where we're at. Any other questions I can answer for you guys?
Very good.
So technically now you only got 2 cars that's bad.
I got,
I don't
yes,
say bad, but old.
yes,
Old is a better word,
yes.
yeah.
We're getting there slowly but surely.
Okay, good. That's good.
Very good, very good.
Unless you guys want to find me an extra 30. I can solve that problem too.
So, when we look at revenues in a few weeks, the fire due collections for the fire district are up a good bit. Matter of fact, since Pat's been fire chief, they've almost doubled in collection, so, and it's impressive.
Last year, if I remember correctly, didn't you say something about?
The cost recovery program,
Yeah.
we're waiting on,
Yeah.
and Kevin's doing some work, Chief and I have been getting with
Yeah, I
Kevin
remember you saying that. talking about
to
that
figure
last
out.
year.
We've sent him some copies of ordinances he needs to look at and find out what's just gonna match us and be better for us.
That's the biggest thing now is getting that ordinance written up so we can present it to you guys and have something that's gonna pass you off smell test the first time.
Oh,
As
okay.
opposed to submitting it, then having to go back, rewrite it, then bring it again. We want to make sure that whatever we present to you guys is going to be something good that you.
Plus, we wanna make sure when it does get passed, there's enough education to be put out there, so citizens don't call and hassle you guys or you just wanna find a way to raise taxes. We wanna make sure we get that complete package in, so the questions are there for you to answer when someone does call. It's easier than to blindside you and just not have it all together.
I also want to add a couple more things as it relates to the fire budget. One of the things that I recognized early on in January when we started working with the fire department in their budget, there were a couple of areas where there were some deficiencies as it relates to operating procedures. Myself and Mr. Garland and Chief Kavanaugh, we sat down, we took a look at it, and there have been some increases as it relates to the operations. As I explained to the firemen last Thursday evening, I believe it was, at their monthly fire meeting, that there were increases, that Mr. Garland had found some monies and put some increases in place. May not be exactly where we want it to be, but it's not where it was.
Oh.
You know, there have been in some areas 25% increase in travel expense. Auto operating is 25 to 30%. 50% increase in maintenance and service. 10% increase in radio supplies. employee training 100% increase. Where, I mean, we were able to double that. 70% in increase in fire prevention expenses. Special department supplies, 15% increase. Other operating expenses, which is a catch-all, is 120% increase. So there have been significant increases as it relates to the operations side of it, and we'll be working in the upcoming budgets to just add 5% here, 10% here, where we can get until we can get these guys where they need to be. But that was one of the things, I'll be totally honest with you, when I met with both the full-time firemen and the volunteer firemen, that was one of their things was budgets, and I told them that was one of the areas that I wanted to really, really work with Chief Kavanaugh and Mr. Garland to try to help Chief Kavanaugh out as best we could to identify those areas where there were some deficiencies, and Mr. Garland was able to look in and see those things as well. And we, like I said, we weren't able to do everything, but we did do some things.
That's great. Okay.
As I indicated, some progress is better than none.
So are you enjoying your new truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
He just makes you take your shoes off when you get in.
Good idea. I'm on your side. Good
If
idea.
you ever see my personal stuff at home, I'm the same way at the
Good idea.
house.
I like the detail on
See
the
that,
logo.
see that's a problem right there.
I think- Looks good.
Okay,
Anything else, Tony?
well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, you.
Take care. Thanks, Chief. All right. Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The police department's budget, we will begin on page 25. Going into this budget, I mean, Mr. Garland told me from the very beginning this is going to be a really, really tight year. I went in with the focus of trying to keep what I had. If there were some areas that I could get some increases, great, but as long as I could, at least maintain, we would be satisfied. So there are a couple of areas here where we did receive increases. Again, the biggest thing was, staying where we were, and keeping what we had. Travel and training, we've got a 25% increase there, and we thank you all so kindly for that. One of the things that I found about training with these guys, number one, it makes them aware of the new trends in law enforcement and public safety throughout the country. Gives them also an opportunity to go out and train with other officers from other parts of the state, and in some cases, other parts of the country. We've got our two watch commanders that are on the way back now from Gatlinburg, where they went up to do some traveling with some training with the federal government. One of the things I enjoy about training with the federal government is their training is low cost. Sometimes there's a little bit of travel involved, but for the most part, the registration fees are minimum, if at all, and they get group rates with their hotels. This was some excellent training that those guys went to. And we've got some more training for some of the patrolmen scheduled over in Conway in a couple of weeks. The other thing about training really, really helps out tremendously with morale. And we've noticed an uptick in morale back there since we've started allowing more participation for training and encouraging training with everybody, and giving all of them opportunities to train, even our administrative staff. They went and did some training in Greenville with SLED. It's about trying to train them to get the most and the best that we can get out of them. Other operating expenses was another area that we received some increases in. That's our catch-all. That pretty much, as far as increases from line items, is pretty much it. Was just those two things. We were able to just, like I said, my goal was to keep what I had, and really try to help Chief Kavanaugh with the fire department as best I could. I'll entertain any questions at this point that you all may have.
How about give them an overview of the lease program and how that's going along? They need to know.
Yeah, the lease program is not going as well. There are two parts of it, because we've got the lease program with the narcotics vehicles, which is going really, really well from the standpoint of what it's costing the city, because basically they're operating the vehicles at little to no cost to the city because of the resale every 6 months. That whole process for Enterprise, while it was an easy process to get involved in, it's not been a very good process to manage since. Their billing is some of the worst billing in a corporate company that I've ever worked with. And I'll give you an example. It took us 2 or 3 months to finally figure the billing out and how the billing cycle works. It was very frustrating, and we finally got somebody on the phone. It was someone in Ohio who was very snarky, to say the least. To just be totally frank, which had a pretty bad attitude, like we had done something wrong. And here we are as clients. We're just trying to figure out when do we need to pay y'all. So we finally figured that out. I worked with Miss Pridgeon and her office, and we mail the checks, get them there 7, 8 days before they're due. I'm looking at the account, and nothing has changed. So I called Miss Pridgeon. I'm like, Miss Pridgeon, I know we got this check from you. We mailed it. Can you check to see if it's cleared the bank? She calls me back a few moments later. Yeah, Chief, this is when it clears the bank. Clear the bank. I'm gonna send you a copy of the check. So I called them back. I'm like, hey guys, look, you guys have received this check. You received it 3 to 5 days ago. Why is this still showing up that we owe you all and we don't? You've already cashed the check and everything. Well, their thing was, well, we don't change it till the 1st of the month. Yeah, but you say it's due on the 20th. And you had the money since like the 13th. It shouldn't take till the 1st to change it. Well, that's just how our system is set up. Okay, fine. So we waited until the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and sometime around the 4th, it finally changes. But then when it changes, it changed from what I paid to now what I'm due on the 20th. So it never showed where I had a zero balance, which for me, I'm one of these folks where I need to see that zero balance, and so it's just not been a very pleasant experience. I met with a representative from Enterprise on yesterday and expressed my displeasure and our concerns. I told them that it's very doubtful that we will continue in this partnership with them because of that. The narcotics vehicles and how we had that set up, that's a win-win for the city because we're purchasing the vehicles at such a low price and then reselling them at a higher price. They're paying for themselves. And so that's not a bad deal. It's working out pretty good. But as far as the patrol vehicles, at this point tonight, I would not recommend the council for us to continue that partnership.
Where's the guy that sold us the plan? Is he involved with your conversations?
He is in Columbia. I have not spoken to him. I think his boss and the young lady who's from Hartsville that manages this area, they sent emails to me and Howard, and Mr. Garland today, requesting a meeting. I think we're going to meet with them in about 2 weeks.
Well, I put them off till June.
June,
Because I tried calling and leaving a message telling them I didn't think it was worth their time to come, but they're insisting. So,
well, I pretty much told her the same thing yesterday, but
and let me take this a little further here. What Chief is not telling you is that they would have one of their folks from the collection department call me and say, "You owe us this money. Why haven't you paid it yet?"
Oh my goodness.
And they did it 5 months in a row.
And you already paid.
Yeah.
That's not good.
So
I'd have to get with Ms. Pridgeon and get the check where it's cleared the bank. And it just...
Said one is not talking to the other.
that's frustrating.
They don't.
Very, it's completely frustrating.
That's not good.
So,
But you made it.
I mean, what the product that they have, yeah, it's good, but there's too much to worry about on this other side, especially.
How much longer we got?
That'll be up to you all, how you all want to do it. If we
Okay.
want to finish out just these cars that we have,
Right.
which would be the recommendation I would make, then we can just do that.
And don't
Just-
do it anymore.
No.
Okay.
And what I told Mr. Darwin, I knew that this year was going to be a tight year with the budget anyway. So we will make do with what we can this year. It may cause us to reduce the number of vehicles that we're going to try to purchase this year to make up for it, and then we'll get back in the cycle hopefully next year. And then, I mean, it just,
What, just for clarification, the other than the patrolman, what's that? The drug units or whatever?
yes, ma'am.
Is that separate?
Well,
But they still under the same thing?
it's still under the same company. It's just that with the drug vehicles, the kinds of vehicles that we we're leasing through Enterprise, whenever we get those vehicles, we're able to buy them at a state purchase contract price,
Oh, okay.
which is an extremely low price. But then they will take them in the outside market to an auction and auction them off. And because of the need for those particular kinds of vehicles, the prices are a lot higher. And so what they do is the price that they get at auction is up here, and then the price that we purchase it on through the lease is down here. So you separate, or you subtract from that lower amount, and that pays the lease for the 6 months.
Plus you don't have the expense with striping and all that other stuff.
No, sir, we don't have any of that with the patrol cars. In fact, I mean with the narcotics vehicles. In fact, the only expense that we have with that is just tinting the front windows, which is like $150.
Yeah,
Go to the
okay.
Right.
So, okay, very good.
So can
So,
you,
go ahead.
you could add something?
Well, I was just gonna say, can you keep it? I mean, that part,
That's what we're going to try to do.
that's what I'm saying.
That's
Can you
why.
maintain that?
That's why I'm encouraging to us to maybe the 5 vehicles that we just bought, maybe stay within the contract with that. Since they've given us such a good incentive and good deal with the narcotics vehicles, we're still doing business with them. I just don't know as far as
Extending
purchasing
anymore. Okay.
the patrol cars. I think we can do something different with that.
Very good.
And we're going to work on something else with that.
So, can you give us some information on our traffic tickets? How's that going, or?
Yes, ma'am, I can. Well, let me start off by saying, I've been here about 16 months. And so coming in, the guidance I got from you all was that you wanted the police department to be a little bit more involved in the community and working a little bit more in the community, which is exactly what we have done. In fact, they've done a really, really good job at it. Our calls for service are down, and I think our violent crimes are down as well as a result of it. Now, because of that, we're not writing as many tickets, traffic tickets. There are a lot of factors involved with this. If you all have a moment, I'd like to just take a stroll back down memory lane. Back in 2017 and years prior to that, it's my understanding that this department was heavy traffic.
Yes,
They did a lot of traffic.
a lot.
Well, back in 2017, the General Assembly changed how cities could do careless operation. Okay?
Well,
Prior to July of 2017, if someone got a traffic ticket or a state ticket, they could ask to pay a careless operation ticket, and it wouldn't be any points, but it would be a higher fine.
right.
As a result of that, the city would keep 100% of that fine because it was written on a city ordinance. Well, the state realized that they were missing out on a lot of revenues because most cities were doing that. So they came back and said, any ticket, regardless of whether or not it's written on a state traffic ticket or a city ordinance ticket, was going to be subjected to the same assessments and fines and fees as state tickets.
Oh, my gosh.
and our revenues went down. And so you can look at July, I think July of 2017, our ticket revenues went down 50%, and they never recovered. There are a lot of different things that went on that particular year. If you recall, summer of 2017 was when we had the break-in here. There were also some issues in the clerk's office that year, is my understanding. There were also,
Be careful.
I know, I'm kind of tiptoeing around this thing as best I can. But I mean, most of these things, they're common knowledge. There were a lot of different variables that were going on. You all got a new judge during that same time. And I'm talking behind other people and talking from my research that I found. The previous judge was a little more heavy-handed than the current judge. Well, because of that, there's going to be a reduction in revenues. So again, there are a lot of different factors. Mr. Garland and I, we have talked in great detail about this. To be frank with you, the previous administration, the projection that they had for a city of this size was just too high. And I'm not blaming,
Chief, do you remember what that was? I know we discussed it the other day.
$360,000.
Did you say that
That was a lot of work.
a city the size of Myrtle Beach wouldn't have those expectations?
And so,
Columbia doesn't do it.
which caused some things that we've had to kind of take another look at. There were a lot of different things going on in 17, y'all. I mean, I hate to go over them because we're in a public setting, but I mean, you all were here. I didn't get here in March of 18. There were a lot of things that went on here in 17. All of those things were motivating factors. One thing about this line of work, and I mean, I've been in this line of work for 30 years, when things happen in a department, it affects the morale. And when our folks respond to calls, or when they stop cars, people will get aggravated with them, and whatever issue is going on during the time of that department gets thrown in their face. And so it minimizes their interactions with the public. They limit their because they don't want to hear it. And but now you look at where we were spring of 18 versus where we are now, we're doing a little bit better. But yes, ma'am.
All right, Chief. So, from her question and from what I'm hearing you respond, we can conclude that a lot of the revenue that we are probably still writing the same amount of tickets, but because of this change in legislation as to how the funding is done, would automatically cause a decrease in our revenue.
There's two things. We're not writing as many tickets,
Okay.
and that's also a factor as well.
Okay.
The thing that your comments just now about what happened with the careless operation, and the ability to use careless operation, that's been a factor as well.
We are using it though. No.
It really serves no purpose now to use it because you still got to split the money up the same way. I'll give you an example. If someone gives a full,
Get them points on.
well, yeah, but in some cases, with some insurance companies, they've been treating careless operation like reckless driving, which has been jacking people's car insurance up. I'll give you an example of just maybe a 2-point citation. Someone gets a 2-point citation that the fine is $76. Out of that $76, the city might get $20. The city might get $20.
The only thing that we keep fully are the parking tickets and the seatbelt fines.
That's exactly right.
And another thing that we're down on too is seatbelt citations. I think, 2016, we wrote 2,500 seatbelt citations, which worked out to about $62,000.
Cause y'all stopped monitoring me. You just, what am I doing?
Gotta get
I paid that once a week. Oh,
She's not kidding.
Is there any way you can edit, is there any way you can edit that?
A lot of people don't wear seatbelts.
So,
After the first 3 times, you should have put your seatbelt on.
so it's been
I'll go another route.
it's been a bit of a struggle. Myself and Mr. Garland, I mean, we've had several conversations about this. I think the way that we're handling it tonight and just handling it out in the open and being totally open and transparent about it is, I think, the way to go about handling it. I don't think that Mr. Garland got the very best advice in the past as it relates to traffic enforcement in this community. It was just not sustainable.
The thing that is the shock to the system for us is this is the year we're taking the budget hit on it.
Exactly.
It's probably, I'd have to get the numbers for you when we'll go over it on another night, but it's a huge hit to our budget.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's been coming. The
Projection was just set too high.
It was too high.
Too high.
It was too high for
small,
communities.
this is like this size, okay?
I do want to say I'm glad to see that training is being offered already to the administrative staff
Yes.
because of other
Yes.
things. That means quite a lot, and
Absolutely.
I think that would correct and make things.
Absolutely.
Bring them around,
I think folks like they're doing
like
it.
that.
Thank you for
And they
that.
seem to be a lot happier.
They all happy.
I mean, when I speak with them and see them in the street and talk to them, they seem to be
I
enjoying it.
because and again, we're watching now even with traffic and their interactions with the public. Our traffic revenues have even picked up the last 2 or 3 months, and all of those things have to do with morale. And we're not pushing them out there to do it. They're going out and they're working, and they're in the communities. They're working with folks, and they're servicing the people of the community, which is exactly what we want done.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chief.
One more question, because I heard a rumor, and I'm not sure whether it's good or bad, but is there going to be a police substation on Avenue D and Main Street? I keep hearing this. I'm like, what? What?
No.
No? Okay, well.
Not to my knowledge. That is not anything that I have discussed with Mr. Garland or anyone else. No, ma'am. I have no plans of
That's
that.
what I want to know.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I have no formal request of anything of that nature.
That can't be done without us knowing about it anyway.
Exactly.
I have no formal request of
Okay.
anything of that nature. And if I had, I would meet with Mr. Garland about it and then bring it before council, and we could make a decision about it. Those things of that nature are things that I believe, unless somebody knows something that I don't know, that the police department, especially the chief, should have a say so in that decision and make that recommendation. And we don't.
Mr. Garland?
Now, in years past, we had police substation at Bowen Manor. And we've talked about, when Chief Washington came on last year, we talked about maybe setting up a substation in another apartment complex. That would be my idea of setting up a substation.
But that was brought through council.
Well, I know, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
but that's the only thing I know of that's been done like that. That's the first I'd heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, and if it's done again, it's going to be brought before council.
Right.
I have talked to the young lady. I can't think of what Miss Jamie's last name is.
Jamie Steen.
That's it, Miss Jamie Steen, who is the director for the Housing Authority in this area. She and I have had those conversations, but we have not, there's no plan, nothing in concrete.
Exactly.
There's some other priorities right now that we want to take a look at it. But
I'll be jumping up and down.
Okay.
'Cause I'll be
See
running
Alex
on
back there.
Ward 2 and Braxton.
It didn't happen.
Ward 2. Ward 2.
in my experiences with substations, you should identify areas where there is a need for a police presence.
Ward 2.
And normally they are in high crime rate areas to encourage a police presence. There should be some planning. There should be some. There should be some.
Should be a need for.
There should be.
Yeah,
There should be some research showing why there's a need.
And it got to come before council.
Absolutely. When I make that presentation to council, I'm going to say, I can assure you now, if I make a presentation to council as it relates to a substation, I'm going to say, hey, I recommend a substation in this community because of these reasons. And there's going to be statistical data to show you why that needs to happen.
Thank you, Chris.
I agree with that. Thank you for that.
Can I go?
You struggle with that.
Yeah.
Well, blame it on Ms. Backus.
No. Listen, I told you all when I first got here, anytime y'all want to ask me something, please by all means do it. And
See what happened when that door stay open like that right there?
while we're waiting on Alex, I did want to again thank you all for giving me the opportunity to serve as the police chief here. My wife told me, and I've told you all this before, 6 or 8 months ago, she hadn't seen me this happy in years.
All right now.
I'm having a ball. We are blessed here with a very, very good staff. They do an amazing job, and I am very proud to be their police chief. They make me proud every single day. They come to work every day. They enjoy coming to work. I enjoy them coming to work, and they're a good group, and we're very blessed in this community. And I told you all this before about Jay's insight, and more importantly, you all's insight years ago with that camera. You know, Mr. Garland and I, we laugh at that camera all the time. I think Councilwoman Backus, you and I talked the other day, Mayor, Ms. Reed, I've talked to all of you all, Councilman Seegers. That camera, I'm telling you, it doesn't lie. And, you know, I bring people in there and show them how they look on that camera. And it shuts things down really, really, really fast.
Case closed.
Case closed. So we're trying to partner with the state now to get a grant to update the grant. So to update all of our camera equipment. So we're very proud of that.
While we're waiting, do you want to mention the gift that we got from Dixie?
Should I do that in public?
Oh, no.
Well, Chief, I will say I am happy that you come to work too. It's very pleasing to see you here every day.
Happy that you happy.
Yes, I am.
That's good.
Thank you so very much.
I'll say something in general. The Dixie Federal Credit Union helped us out with the project, and we're tremendously thankful to them. We've gone back and talked with the bank president and thanked him personally. In fact, about 3 or 4 Fridays ago,
He told me how good you were the other day when I was in there.
Yeah.
yeah, I saw the mayor at the bank loaning the bank some money.
That's what she does. That's what she
She was
does.
loaning the bank some money, and we have one of the new patrol cars. Thank y'all too, by the way.
The cars are nice.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
Thank you.
They're really
Thank you. Jimmy,
Oh, so that's it. The ones
White
that.
one.
the
Can we
Yeah.
drive them? Represent community.
Oh, that's it. Well, you know, I had a
Ride
problem
them.
today.
Mr. Ryder,
No.
Get you like a seatbelt.
Well, if that's the case. Well,
if somebody don't put their seatbelt on, they're gonna be riding in one.
I mean,
No.
you want to ride the new one? You want to ride the new one?
Listen, let me tell y'all my experience today. I was going to meet someone at Mayo High School, and so, you know, come up on Washington Street, got to the railroad track, and the school bus was there. And it was stopped, you could see it blinking lights, and there was a car right in front of me. When I pulled up behind it, I said, gosh, it's been there so long. There was so much commotion going on inside, you could see, the kids was fighting and carrying on, it was horrendous. So I could see it, I said, oh my gosh, that's why it's there. So I called 911, right quick there, that's the first time Siri was on it. Siri did it, and I really did, so as I was calling them and they were giving them all of the information and telling which way I was traveling, but it was still stopped. Then they crossed and let somebody out. But when I went up to the bus, I didn't see the driver. They had the door locked, and the driver went down. Soon had stopped the bus to kind of stop whatever had happened there. But by time from the railroad by the time they drove up to Southern Pine, the police had gotten there. That was how fast they responded. The young lady at 911, she was, I kept her there. I like the way that they do, but there was two of them that came.
I also want to say,
I don't know what happened.
two other things. And I give her a hard time, but every time I call her, she always responds, and that's Miss Bridget. And I get a tremendous amount of information from her as it relates to finances. And yeah, I'm always asking for something. But it helps me out tremendously with my job, keeping up with finances. So when Mr. Garland has a question about something, we can answer it. And even if I think Mr. Garland's going to have a question about something, I'll have the answer for him before he asks it. I also want to thank him as well and let you all know there are a lot of police chiefs that do not have the ability to run their departments without the city manager and members of city council getting involved in it, and we don't have that here. And I thank you all for allowing us to run the department. It makes my job a lot easier.
I didn't know I wasn't running it.
You're providing oversight.
You had to pay for it, $25 ticket.
Yeah, you're providing oversight. But if there's any complaint that you hear about from police chiefs, that's what it is. And so again, I want to thank you guys for your support over this last 16 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chief.
guys.
I don't think there's anything else on there. Oh, one thing, since you got, wait a minute, one more thing. I see on here you have 248 about the swimming pool repairs. There's nothing down there for that. Since
That's not in their department anymore.
that's not the
Yeah,
department.
they don't handle that.
There he is.
Yeah,
What's
okay.
Wait outside, you want to come in?
Come on in. Please, please come on
Wait on
in.
you.
He's so happy to see you.
I don't think I've ever been this. I want to hug you, man. I haven't seen you.
You leaving?
Yeah, absolutely. Where's the trash?
It's out there. There's another one.
Take it past it. That's one of those prison police.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you all again.
I think y'all have this already up there.
Really good.
Yeah.
Good seeing you. Take care, folks. Safe.
See you Monday.
All right. What? No.
No, just said it. That's always a test, see if somebody's coming in the next day. All right, Mr. Gainey's here, and very appreciative of the work that he and Sheila Jones have done in that department. I won't say the department makes money, Alex might, but the amount of money that they're bringing in now is more, is 3 times what we did on an average year the last few years before they got here. And the ISO inspection that they went through recently, we had the inspection done in 2015 and we scored a 9, and 10 is your worst score. Well, they scored a 4 this year. And they were very complimentary about the way they streamline things, especially for the public when they come in and need information. So that was in my management report last month, but just want y'all to know that they've been very innovative. I think you see a lot of that when we have ideas that council members bring in, something's wrong in their ward. Some are more emphatic about those problems in the ward than others. But just want you to know that Alex and Sheila tried to work through those things and has come up with some really good ideas. And it's not just ideas that have benefited that department, that have benefited the entire town. So, hand that off to him now so he can go over some of these numbers. And I'm very pleased with where that department is right now.
All right.
All right, you want me to go through everything line item by line item, or?
However you want to handle it. If you just want to do just a general overview, or you just go, talk about what y'all been doing the last few months, however you want to handle it.
Well, I'll go through these lines, well, I'm not gonna go through each line item, but we'll go through the personal services, the first few items which deal with the salaries and stuff, that's pretty much staying the same. Hasn't been a lot of change since last year there. We went up on when you go down to operating expense, the printing and office supplies, we went up on that, a little bit from, as you see, our budget for this year was actually $750. We projected we're gonna spend around $1,024. So we put the budget at $1,200. Postage is staying about the same. We're sending out a lot of letters. One thing that we've actually started, we've taken on is the BZA Board of Zoning Appeals. So the stuff that Lisa used to send out as far as certified letters, that's going to be coming out of our budget now. So we'll have more that we'll be sending out, more letters that we'll be sending out there. Membership dues, $350. That's membership for my certifications and stuff that I have to keep up. Auto operating expense, of course, has gone up. Prior to this year, in November, we bought the truck. Prior to me getting the truck, we were they were paying mileage for my truck for me to drive my personal truck. We bought the truck, so therefore the operating expense of the vehicle went up. Telephone's gone up a little bit. Maintenance service contracts. That dealing with our copy machine, correct? We got a new copier, which I think we're actually saving money. Is that correct on the new copy machine?
That may be, but I think that was increased because there were some other items that you have in there now, which is like your information technology.
Okay.
So, what's the name? Asset Technology Group.
Asset,
Charge
yeah.
taking out
Okay.
of that.
All right.
What is that?
That's the company that we deal with at the corner of Susquehanna and South Main that does our IT now, information technology.
Oh, Bank of
there.
America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Advertising, I'm staying at $1,000. Vehicle insurance staying the same. Employee training went up from $450 to $2,500. One of the things we found out whenever we went through that ISO inspection was that we have not been spending the amount of money in training that we should. We haven't been. I mean, a lot of the classes that I've taken, I've paid for myself out of my pocket. So anyway, but we upped that, and also we want Sheila to start. I've got a couple classes I want her to go take. One of them's going to be a permit tech class to get her certified to be a permit tech. Another one's going to be floodplain management stuff. So we up
What's the permit tech?
Permit tech is in the code department. If somebody comes in, it's basically a certification she should have had. It's not required, but it would make her job, make it a lot easier, and she would understand a lot more of the code side of it. And when people come in and ask questions, she can answer it with the way she should.
Okay.
So anyway, it'll help her out a lot.
Right.
So we've increased that, so she and I will both be taking a little bit more training. Special contracts, of course, we know that deals with the demolition and the contract with, now we have it with Mike Steger that cleans the lots. Last year we had a budget of 55. I guess Howard projected we're going to spend 65, somewhere around there. We upped it to 70,000 this year. And I'll go over those numbers, go over that stuff in just a few minutes. So you'll kind of see where we're at with the demolition. And then special department supplies we upped that to 5,000. So we went from 61,000 from our budget to total of 90,541. And then our capital expenses have stayed pretty much the same. which takes our grand total for our department was this year 170, is taking it to 203, 007. So well over $200,000 is what our budget will be, or what we're proposing for the next budget year.
Let me ask something. 271 line, 500. It was 800. Then it's 5,000. What all is that involved in special department supply?
I guess it's some of those suits that you wear when you go out. What do you call it?
Are you talking about the Tyvek suits?
Tyvek suits. I couldn't remember the name
Just-
of it.
Oh, no, and I did
I think there's also books or anything that we need international building code books and code books and things like that.
Yeah. There again.
And those books are like this. I mean, and you buy those library books, and they're literally library books for reference. They can cost several $1,000s when you update them. So that's one reason they're.
Yeah, we got. I mean, we're fixing. I'm gonna have to buy the. I haven't bought them yet. Actually, there's a 2018 code update that I need to go to, but I haven't gone because I've got to buy this new 2018 version of the books, and I believe that set of books is about $2,500.
So that's the reason for the increase. We every 3 or 4 years we have to update those books.
Okay, well, once you said suits, I got to make sure they're not Versace and Armani.
Oh no.
That's just not available online. You still have to pay royalty to get on there.
No, it's better to have all that, believe me, in a book when somebody comes in.
Okay.
Because Spectrum is good. No, let's be truthful. Spectrum is not really.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So if you go to something, and how many times a day does are the Spectrum down? If you had something like that on the internet and try to look it up, and somebody's there and they need an answer right now.
So when we talk about our budget for this year and the numbers, so far to date, we have collected $123,439.23 in permitting fees.
You're not going to see that on any of your numbers.
No, this is
That's
just
what
stuff
I'm
That's
that
revenue.
Okay.
It's revenue.
Okay.
So we've collected 123,000, and we've still got a couple things that are supposed to come through for our department before the end of the budget year. We were expecting to collect around 140,439. I think we're going to be somewhere around 150,000. Because we're at 123,000, and I got one permit now that's going to have to be renewed, and it's about a $20,000 permit. So that's going to put us over $140,000 mark. So I think we're going to be somewhere around 150,000 for the year. Now when we start talking about 2019, 2020, basically what we've done is we've been trying to trend our income over the last few years to figure out about how much. Last year we had, from the previous year, we had about an 18% increase in our income. This year we've had about a 27% increase. So if you take the 27% increase on what we're projecting, we're going to the 140,000, that puts us at about 177,000 is what we're projecting to bring in next year. What I will say that is, we have a couple of projects that may come to pass, and if they do, we're probably going to exceed 200, around 250,000 for income next year.
It's just me. Can you okay. Where does the revenue come? Can kind of
Where does the revenue?
outlet? Yeah.
Revenue is going to be.
I mean, what are we getting it from? I mean, is it?
Or give her an example of large ticket permits. That's what
Okay.
you're
So I can. Kind
Just for instance, Genesis Healthcare, when they pulled the permits for the project on Exchange Street,
Okay.
that's about I believe total was about $35,000.
Okay.
So when you have those big ticket items, those big ticket projects, that's when you really generate income.
And the big money maker for us next year will be Project Peach fees.
If Project Peach, we were given figures as to roughly a range as to what that project would cost. And we figured permits on that project at the minimum fee that they gave us. And if it came in at the minimum amount, the permits on that project would be, just the general contractor's permit would be $113,000. That'd be about $160,000 project for permitting fees. So, you know, that's a pretty significant project there. And that's what I'm saying. And I know of several other projects that's going to be, that's supposed to be coming, that we're supposed to be doing, or that's supposed to be happening. And if all of those come to pass, and I mean, I'm pretty sure they will, one of them, a couple of them are already working on it. Then,
But I just need to know how that works. So that's great, as a matter of fact.
we increased of course you saw we went up on our demolition budget. One of the reasons it's not necessarily demolition, it's contract services. One of the reasons we went up on that is because 2018, 17-18 year, 18-19 year, we had our demolition list had a total of 51 pieces of our properties on it. Out of the 51, a couple of them were commercial, and they, you know, one of them are still working on trying to get it down. But we've had total, we've taken 20, the city has taken 26 properties down. 10 have actually had permits pulled to redo them. So that leaves us about 15 remaining on the list for this year. A couple of them are just going to be too expensive. I know we're not going to be able to do it. Actually, I think 2 of them or 3 of them can be taken off, and that was on Tallulah Street, those apartments. Those 3 addresses can actually be taken off. So now we're down to about 12 pieces of properties that are still left on the 18-19 list. My plans are to have those taken down by the end of this budget year. And I have come up with a new list that I'm going to present to y'all in the next month or so. And it has 35 properties on it. And this is the list here. I mean, if y'all want to look at it, you can. Now, don't get me wrong. We take those 35 down, and we're going to, I mean, we'll be taking, you know, a bunch of properties down that need to be taken down. We'll still have more that need to come down. But I can't come up with a list of 7. It's not doable. So we have 35 on the list from 2019, or for 2019-20 budget year. So far this year, we've spent $48,826 of our contract services. $40,876 of that is for demolition of homes. $7,950 is for lot cleaning. So $7,950 has been spent cleaning lots. We collected from property owners for when we send a bill to them for either tearing a house down or cleaning a lot. We've collected so far $11,999.85. That's what we've been reimbursed.
And that's not showing on what we have. You got that figure.
Yeah, we've got this figure here.
But you don't have to give that to us. We have it on here?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's what I thought.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's $11,999.85 is what we've collected for contract services. So if you take and you look at it, it cost us around, on the average, around $1,900 a house to take a house down if we tear a house down.
Oh.
And so if we have 50 houses total, and what we're saying, where we came up with the 50 is there's still 15 remaining on the list for this year and 35 for next year. That gives you a total of 50 properties. So if you figure $2,000 a house, 50 houses, that's $100,000. Now, like I said, we're going to take a big portion of that 15, so we're probably going to be somewhere around 40 properties is what we're going to be looking at going into 2019-20. So that's why we proposed a little bit more in our demolition budget, and also so that we can.
So you are really staying within this $565,000, $70,000. No, what you got on the budget?
You say,
272, isn't that what the demolition budget?
That is. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 270, yeah. This year it was 55,000, out of 55, we've spent so far a total of 48,826.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's, I was still,
Yeah,
all that.
and
sounded like
we
a
brought
lot.
back in 11,000, almost $12,000. And we're still waiting on, we've had several people contact us where we've sent them letters, and they're working on trying to get us the money. We've got 1 or 2 properties, I believe they're bringing $500 a month or something to pay us back, so, me personally, as long as we're getting our money back, then, I mean, we're not a bank, but at least they're trying to pay us back.
My lady on Edwards Avenue, did she pull the permit?
No, ma'am, she hadn't pulled the permit yet.
I've got some news about 375 West Broad Street. That's the house that's in such bad shape, the Lawrence Reese house. I've called one of my old friends from the Palmetto Trust for Historic Preservation. They preserve old residential structures. He's coming to visit next week and see what we can do for that structure.
Does this in our
Which one that is
It's
now?
historic. 375 West Broad Street. George Chase came to the council meeting recently, was complaining. He's
Okay, the one across from the duck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and Howard and I talked about that house the other day, and I told him, I mean, if we try to tackle tearing that house, it's going to cost me $20,000 to tear that house down. It's just so big, and you know, if we've got a budget of 70 and you spend 20, then you know you've spent 3/4 of your budget on one property. It's really not doable. So he's got the gentleman coming to see if they can do something to maybe help us out. Maybe that'll make George happy.
what
Well, I
they.
can't blame them.
Let me give you an example of what they do. They will come in and stabilize the structure and then advertise it nationally for someone to come in and restore. So they act as a holding agent for someone that would come in and invest in that property. So that's what we're hoping for, that there'll be enough interest in it.
But I think we need to revisit this lot cleaning up. Some of these lots is not cleaned well. Is a better way to put it. And I think as a council, we need to revisit these lots being cleaned up.
How does the owner get involved in that? Whoever owns the lot?
Huh?
Whoever owns the lot, how do they get involved as far as the cleaning up?
The owner is not involved in it at all.
Well, I mean, why shouldn't they be? That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, he's asking.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't the owner be involved?
That we should look
Well,
at
from what
getting
I
them on.
understand, we're sending them. What you tell me y'all was doing?
You talking about we tear down a house?
Yeah.
Basically, we tear a house down. I mean, we send them a letter and tell them that the house has been condemned, and they have 30 days to either come pull permits or tear the house down. Now, if they don't tear it down or don't pull permits, then of course it's on our list, and when we get to it, we get to it. But we tear the house down. Once we tear the house down, then you know we send them a bill for whatever it costs the city to tear the house down, plus 15% administrative cost. So if it costs the city $2,000, then they'll get a bill for $2,000 plus the 15% administrative cost. Now, if they don't respond to us, or don't try to make payment arrangements, or don't pay us, then we'll assess it to their taxes. So whenever their tax notice, when they receive their tax notice at the end of the year, then they'll see that not only do they owe $800 in taxes, but they owe $2,000 to the city plus the 15% administrative cost.
Okay, so with that said, we're tearing down the house, and then somebody's being hired to go out and clean up the lots, right?
Well,
So
I mean,
if we're gonna send somebody a $2,000 bill, then we should be cleaning up that lot.
I think the standard, and Alex and I have had extensive conversations about this, the standard of what you're talking about is clean is maybe not the same standard that he's thinking about is clean.
And that's why the council need to rediscuss this.
But I'm just letting them know that it's just a difference of opinion, that's all, that's what I'm
Because the way
saying.
these lots, some of these lots are left, doesn't look good for the city. It's not, it's too trashy. And it doesn't look good for the fact that if we're gonna tear a house down, the lot should be, For example, if a contractor was tearing this house down, and Alice went out to monitor it, they would be held to a certain standard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen houses that some of these contractors have gone in and torn them down. And, you know, typically they don't haul dirt in and level a lot on off. They'll take what's there, which a lot of these old homes that we're tearing down, they don't have much of a foundation up under it. So that's where you run into problems of actually, if you've got to dig a foundation up, then that's where you have your void and have to bring dirt in to level it on off. But, you know, whenever we start looking at houses that we're condemning and we're tearing down, I have several things that I look at. Number one, being an eyesore for the city of Darlington and the residents in the neighborhood. Number two, being a safety hazard. And when I say a safety hazard, when we start having people, and I know it's happening, when you start having people that homeless people that are staying in these homes, and you know, they try to, you know, when it's cold weather outside, they start starting fires in the fireplace or whatever. Next thing you know, you've got a house that's on fire that burns down, and you have a potential risk of having someone in the house that was, you know, staying in a homeless person and they burn up in the house. So we look at it from that standpoint, is to try to get it down and clean up so it's not a safety hazard for the city. We can go in there and clean these lots fine, you know, clean them up.
I want to ask you a question. Okay, with all that being said, and I know what Ms. Baptist is talking about, but the house on Chestnut Street that you took down, it's level on. You're not doing all of them like that? Why?
Because when we took that one down, whenever we took that one down, the way that one was built and the footers and stuff, we actually had to dig. I mean, we had a hole there, so we brought dirt in to level that off. So if we have a house that we have a big hole, then we will bring a load of dirt in and level it off or whatever. We can do that with the backhoe. Now, I know one of them that we got that's a mess right now, and I've talked to Mike Steger about going and cleaning it up, and but it's just so wet over there, you can't do anything. I mean, we've about bogged our track hoe down trying to tear the house down. And, I mean, it is a mess. No doubt it's a mess.
Some of the ones you're talking about. Because, I mean, now the ones you did on Chestnut Street, that's how they should be done.
That's how all of them should be done.
But also,
I'm not saying bring out about holding a lot of dirt. I'm saying get the trash up, the tires up, the limbs up, the debris up. That if we're sending some guy that we paid $7,950 last year to clean up the lots, then when they leave that lot, there shouldn't be tires left.
Well, no,
there shouldn't be sticks left. There shouldn't be paper, tons of cans and trash left on the lot. It doesn't look good.
We hadn't sent him out there we don't tear a house down and then send the contractor out there to clean the lot up. He only goes out there if I tell him to go out there. If it's one that looks real bad, then I'll tell him to go out there and clean it up. Now Mike's only been doing this for us for a couple of months. I mean, before him it was Bleak's Lawn Care. And, you know, he would go and clean a few here and there if I told him to. But he hadn't done it. We haven't cleaned every one of them. And we can, but now you start talking about another $1,000 per lot. So, you know.
You're going to be $1,000 lot to pick up trash?
Sorry.
You pick up some paper.
Just make
tires
Tallulah
and some
Street.
sticks.
What I call cleaning up. Like
You got me.
Tallulah Street.
We,
The house down. But it's so much with tree limb, all that stuff over there. You really don't have so much trash, but it still looks bad because it's got to be cleaned off. So I understand what it's gonna cost to clean it, not just picking up trash. You got
I'm
to.
concerned with the trash. The lots I'm
Okay,
talking about.
well, what I'm looking at is how smooth and even and clear Chestnut is. That's what I'm looking at. I'm gonna try to see if we can't get that done, say for Tallulah Street or some of the other lots. You see what I'm
The
saying?
guy went out to clean this lot.
Jefferson Street.
This is Abe Lincoln.
That don't look good.
Okay, so we talking trash cleanup. What's in sanitation about it?
That's not,
I'm gonna get.
what she's talking about, since the city took on, the code enforcement took on taking down the houses, the demolition and whatever, what have you, that's what they're supposed to be doing. Cause we didn't do it, we didn't have a contractor doing it. It's
The
not a
contractor was
sanitation-
doing this,
Right.
this wouldn't be left out there like that. He would hold the contractor responsible for cleaning this up.
Okay,
Now, you gonna send somebody a $2,000 bill, but you leaving tires and limbs and trash on their lot, that don't look good in the city at all.
okay. Okay, but I'm just, okay, clearing a lot is more than debris to me.
I understand, I agree.
Well, I tell you right now,
Because they-
when you
we
start
don't
talking
have-
about clearing a lot of tires, I don't know what we're gonna do with the tires if you can't take them to the landfill.
Because somebody came and dumped tires on our, right there, just where you tore the house down. And I asked Karen, because they did it, because they had a stack sitting right on the edge where the sign is that says for sale. I mean, trying to get somebody to buy.
Well, let me
We
inject
had a
this in
stack
there.
this high where they just dumped the tires.
Mr. Garland, at one time on council, I don't know whether it has changed or not, there was something where we had once a year, remember, John? That you could put your tires out and we would pick them up. That's no longer in place.
It was done last month.
It was done last month. But was it advertised? I didn't get
I
anything
ain't
about
heard
it.
about that.
I know about
Yeah,
that.
the county does that now.
The county does that now.
No, I ain't heard no about
I ain't
that.
heard nothing about it. I know we used to do it.
We do the, I'm sorry, I mean,
One, no, we all.
we do the cleanup on the square now instead of that.
I know it used to be announced that, to be announced to the citizens that you can put so many tires out and then we come by and pick them up.
But getting back to Chestnut Street,
Yeah.
we hauled 2 loads in there, but the family actually called us. That was the Max or somebody. Somebody from the family called and asked us if, since we were tearing the house down, if we would bring the dirt in and level it off so when it started growing grass, they would have a good level lot. So that's another reason why we put the dirt there as well. But they paid us for it.
Well,
So
I just think, Mr. Gardner, that council need to revisit this cleaning of these lots and make it clear to Mr. Gainey what we expect these lots to look like when they're done.
well, and like I said, we can do it, but $70,000 ain't gonna do it. I can tell you right now. So I mean, if we want to tear 10 houses down and clean 10 lots a year, then $70,000 will do it. But if we're gonna try to clean the city of Darlington up and tear houses down that are a potential hazard, then you know we got to figure out
So
exactly.
you just did, how many houses you did last year?
We've done 20. We've torn 25 down, or actually 27 or 28 so far.
With $48,000? Okay. I still say we need to, council need to discuss it.
So what you gotta do is reduce the number of houses you can tear down.
Yeah.
You ain't got but X number of dollars, you can tear down how many houses and level them out like she's talking
But I'm
about.
not saying bringing no dirt, I'm not saying none of that. All I'm asking you to do is pick up the trash. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not saying holding no dirt and build no land up, I ain't saying none of that.
Again, like I said earlier, it's a matter of a difference of opinion over aesthetics, over how a lot should look.
So that's why council needs discussion and to put down the ground rules of how we want it to look when it's done.
We're discussing, let's move on
Council
to the
need
next
discussion.
person that you were talking to about that.
Okay.
We checked. Okay, anything else you have for
I'm
that?
good unless y'all got questions.
I have one more thing to mention. I wanted to thank Sheila, who's done all of our FEMA work related to Hurricane Florence. And she's done it all within the confines of regular time, no overtime needed. And we've already gotten a check from FEMA for Hurricane Florence reimbursement. If you recall,
Hurricane who now?
Hurricane Florence.
Florence, okay.
Yeah. If you recall, when it was Hurricane Michael and the flood, those checks, one was like 15 months getting here, the other was 20 months. So I really thank her for the work she's done with that and helping us streamline that process. And she's an invaluable resource to have there, because it cost us money to farm that out. And it's been a blessing to have all that in-house.
Right. Okay.
I used to hire good quality people, don't
Agreed.
You talking about, I mean, we're gonna have somebody come back to Little Street.
Well, I talked to the guy that actually owns, we sent the Harts Flour Mill, or the
Yeah.
Cotton Mill, a letter about
Yeah.
the lots.
Yeah.
And he said that since his attorney advised him not to mess with the tree that fell, but since the apartments were gone, he had a tree guy coming and he was gonna clean all that stuff up. So once he cleans up whatever he's gonna clean up, then we'll look at it and see what we need to do.
If he cleaned up his part, it might look all right.
That's for that one. That's it,
That's
okay.
it.
Thank you.
Y'all ready for the next?
Vietnam. But we not finished yet.
There you go.
Y'all have a good evening.
Oh,
There you go.
you can get up and get it done. Not do it fast. If I'm not doing it fast enough for you, you may get
Pass the thing down
past me.
and come over.
There you go.
You might need to give Phil a herd by herself.
Stop eating them chips, you can pass the
No,
thing
I ain't
down.
got to stop. That's what I say. You can get up and get it. Thank you, sweetheart.
There you go.
But you ain't gonna get to it no faster than me.
He just say he trying to hand you, you ain't paying attention.
All right, Colton, we'll stand up for this.
Okay.
500 is your department. It's legislative. This includes a 1% cost of living adjustment there. Nothing's really changed here at all. You know, we have, I think there was a ruling from the state of South Carolina that people that were work on city council and are drawing state retirement, they still have to have retirement taken out of their check. Well, we didn't necessarily agree with it.
I would protest that.
Because we found a loophole in the law that says if you make $9,000 or less as a council salary, they don't have to take out state retirement. But when we appealed that, they said no, if you were a part of state retirement and you're collecting a state retirement check, you have to have it taken out of your, you know, in any way employed, whether it's a member of council or city staff still, so.
I think they just trying to mess with me. Go ahead.
Sorry. But you see, everything's the same there, the travel expense, the phone, other operating expenses, so nothing's really changed with that, with 500. On page 11 is the municipal court, which is the next page. The salary and wages, we've had an increase there of 1%, but we've also, if you look at the second item there, we've had a bump up because Judge Stucks was having so much of his work farmed out to Judge Giles because of recusal from people that were involved with his law firm. So that's the reason for a jump up in that.
That's one-on-one? You talking about one-on-one?
Yes, ma'am, one-on-one,
Okay.
yeah. And so I also understand too that Shanice and Jonna called us up on those tickets that we were behind on too. So that's the reason that you're gonna see that.
So they're in that too? They're in
Yes,
that.
ma'am, yes, yeah. Under 210, the printing and office supplies, that stays the same. The postage, we've cut back some. The maintenance and service contracts, we've increased a bit because they're part of the IT now with Information Technology Group that we work with, ATG. Machine and equipment expense is up to $1,500. Other operating expenses is $2,350. $2,350. So you see the operating expenses are $14,550.
Yeah.
As far as capital is concerned, we've got a little bit in there for furniture and fixtures and office machines.
Yeah.
So that's just around $1,600.
Yeah.
So the total for that department is $152,923.
Right.
At some time in the next week or two, we'll need to have an executive session to discuss the municipal judge. But we don't have enough people here tonight, so we just have to wait on that a bit.
Well, let me ask you something. 266, meals for work sessions, why does, for that line, why there's nothing for that?
You're under 5 in municipal court?
Huh? Oh, no, okay, no. The meals for work sessions, they don't have anything for that. They don't do anything.
Where'd you see that?
On page 10.
Oh, you're talking about legislative, I'm sorry.
That's legislative.
Okay, I was already on the court.
Now, that's what I'm telling you, let's go back to 266. When you don't have anything for that, we don't,
I just do it 801 279.
you put it in 801, 801,
279.
279?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. Well, I mean, why can't we put it there? I mean, you know.
Well, sure you
Okay,
could.
I'm just saying that, you know.
Sure. All right, so we finished with 510. Any questions about the clerk? On page 13, the elections. We have an election for 3 at-large and the mayor seat this year. After talking with Ms. Pridgeon, we estimate our expenses will be around $10,000. And it could go up if we have a runoff. So that, but there's no way to project that. Page 14 is our legal department. Operating professional services is a retainer for Gardner Law Firm and litigation of cases. That's at $35,000. Some years it's going to be up, some years it's going to be down. Every time that the mayor calls Kevin, or I call Kevin, or Sheila calls Kevin, or John calls Kevin, he starts a clock.
Oh, okay.
And we get a billing summary like, in the billing summary it'll say, Mayor Hines phone call about trash pickup, or look, researching an ordinance.
Yes.
So there's a detailed bill we get every month about everything that he deals with, whether it's coming to these meetings or anything else that he deals from like a litigation standpoint. So that is covered there. The next page, 15, is something that we've discussed greatly over the years, which is community promotions.
Yes.
If you notice 550, number 12, PDRTA, we've increased because of the Saturday bus service. So you see that? And to do that, I took money from the contingency funding, which is only at 1,000. Pine Center stays at 5,000, and we have money set aside for our PD Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Assault, the Lord Cares, and Council on Aging, also Darlington Memorial Cemetery.
Where's that? I thought we did. Oh yeah, I see. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
The next page is the accommodations tax. And you see the projections there, which is $400 per. Sweet Potato Festival Race Parade, CRC, Race Fest, Beautification Project at City Hall, which we don't have any money for this year.
Let me ask you a question. Why does a Race Fest show more money? You got 400 down here.
Some years they will request money, some years they won't.
Okay.
Now Race Fest is
Race Fest is the actual program that's on the square.
That's
And the parade is really car haulers. The car haulers go through.
Okay, that's the car hauler thing.
And so the usually what we'll do is I'll ask William Weatherford to break that up, and he'll send us an invoice. And sometimes we write a check, and he won't come get it for 6 months.
Okay.
But he won't get it till he needs it. So that's just how it works.
Okay.
But a lot of that they put on themselves. They will spend
yeah.
$5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for that.
Okay.
So that's a good investment for us.
Okay.
So when the chamber came, we wanted for Freedom Fest.
That comes out of hospitality.
Okay, good.
That's
Yeah,
hospitality's not a part of this.
Good.
Now,
Race Fest is what you have at the car haulers go.
yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I just want to ask about, because I'm just now looking through all of my mail and software. The PD Coalition sent us a letter asking for 5,000.
Well, but we let them have that building
Oh yeah.
on
then-
Orange Street free with no rent.
Okay.
So that's, you
And
can
then-
consider
and
that
then we did
$5,000 a year.
Then we gave them something for the storage, for the warehouse things.
No, that was for Tanya Flowers. That's a different thing.
Oh.
Tanya Flowers her group's different.
Different.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking they
She used to have a shop out there in City Lane where you could go in and get clothes, but I think they operate that out of the warehouse on West Broad Street now, I think. Wasn't that correct?
Yeah. I'll go back down.
Now, if y'all want to put some more money in there, we can, but it's a very lean year, and we've put money this year into actual programs like the demolition program, which we've seen such a good result from. But if you want to put more money in community promotions, I had a council member who called and said that they would not be here tonight, but they were going to ask for more money for a certain item. So, but I told them they could bring that up at another meeting. But this is just my recommendation.
Okay.
Y'all can change this, and some years, as Mayor and John may remember, we've had hour or 2 hour long discussions just about these items here, because people get so heated over some of the things that they want to fund. So y'all take that home and consider it like a homework worksheet. Call up and leave a message on the phone and say, we want to put so-and-so in blah, 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 and we'll see if we can make it work. Don't just be limited by that now, but the one thing to remember is, I had a lady call, and I think Sheila Backus was in the office the other day wanting us to go clean up the cemetery, using city people. We don't go on private property and clean up somebody's cemetery. It doesn't belong to us.
Can't do that.
And so we might be able to give them some money. We might be able to help them write a grant to restore our cemetery, but we can't send our people actually to physically clean up a cemetery unless they do it out of the goodness of their heart on their own time.
So this Darlington County, Cultural Realism Complex is still functioning?
They haven't gotten any money this year. I don't know if they are or not. I really don't.
Well,
She's not the best of health right now, is she?
she talked.
I think she's living in Columbia now with her daughter.
Yeah, she's up there. I talked with her on Wednesday or something. She's one day she called and asked for me to look up her number. I mean, she needed some help in doing things. She want to be back here, but you know the children are pretty set in what they.
I think they keep up. I think it was a son that keeps up the lot.
Yeah.
The actual building I see him out there cutting the grass and raking, and they put out debris for us to pick up. And he comes by the office sometimes and will talk to us, or maybe talk to his preaching some. What's that fellow's name? Is it Michael? Yep. So we see him every now and then. But I don't know if they. I don't know if CRC is involved like they used to be in programs. They used to have the Hal Jackson pageant. Used to sponsor Dr. King ceremony, I think at noon each Dr. King Day. I don't know that, but y'all, I mean, y'all go through and decide how y'all want to divvy that up. We'll do it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm saying, I appreciate all the information you give about the budget. That is my guidance towards
Community
this.
promotion, that's all.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, if I'd like to see another 100 for that cemetery if the Darlington County Realism Complex is not functioning.
Y'all talk it over amongst yourselves. We used to have $50,000 in that account, but when we cut budgets over the years, it's one of the first things that goes is because it doesn't. It's money that we send to outside the city.
So what you have outlined here is what we do have.
Yes, ma'am.
That we can't.
Yeah.
Well, all she's saying is that.
But if you want to transfer from that, sure.
We
can tweak that some. That's fine.
We can work around.
All right,
That's a good thing.
I want us to meet a week from today, and we'll go over the recreation and street and sanitation department. And then the week after that, I'd like to meet. We have to set that date and go over everything else. So we meet the 16th, which would be a 6 p.m. Meeting.
Do my best.
Got it. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Meeting over.
You put it in my phone.
Yeah, put it in my phone.